Welcome to the Mando Fan Show, everybody. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday. We are live and here to talk about Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, The Gathering Storm. With me, as always, is James and Lacey, and our guest is from the website Fantha Tracks. I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of them, and you can also find his musings in Star Wars Insider and on StarWars.com. Also known for doing a lot of things to help Star Wars Celebration be awesome from the fan perspective. Our friend and yours, the great Mark Newbold. What's up, Mark?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you for that introduction. That's very, very kind. Too kind. Too kind. You've woke me up now. It's 2 a.m. here, so I needed that. It was very nice.
Oh man,
it is. Yeah, every time you join us, it's either like 1 or 2 a.m. So we appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you've had a long day yourself, having watched this episode maybe multiple times. I know you had already done your reaction show, Making Tracks, right? You guys did your episode earlier today. So now that you've had a chance to let it settle in, we're going to get into our ratings of the episode and all that sort of thing. First, real quick, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us live right now in the live chat. If you don't mind, if you're on Twitter, social media, and you see our post that we are live, share it with a retweet, quote tweet, Facebook like, Instagram share, wherever you are. Spread the word. Tell a friend to come in, join us in the live chat. It's going to be a good time. So thank you all for joining us live. And don't worry, if you have to duck out, it is going to hit your podcast feeds tomorrow morning, so you can watch it on the channel or hit your audio feeds for that. But Mark, before we get into the ratings and what you gave this episode, I just want to kind of gauge your fandom of Boba Fett. Were you always a Boba Fett fan?
Yeah, I would say so. I think so. When I wasn't aware of the holiday special as a kid before Empire came out, so Empire really was the first sort of introduction. But after that, obviously, he turns up in the comics, and I was a Star Wars Weekly Empire Monthly kid, so it was Fett was kind of very much a focus of a lot of that run of comics, or appearing in those comics. So leading up to, but really Jedi, it takes off, and yeah, absolutely. I think of that era, how could you not be? Almost, you'd almost have to actively avoid him. And then certainly through the 90s, when when you think back to the 90s, it was Fett and Mara Jade. They were the characters of the 90s. So all the way through that sort of massive Star Wars resurgence era. And yeah, I'm really enjoying what we're getting right now. So I think it's great to see the character back and given a different presentation as well, which is really interesting.
Oh, no question. Yeah, no question. So what we're going to do now is get into our ratings of the episode. We do it on our scale of 0 to 10 Tamura Morrison faces. And we include halves as well. Before we do that, just real quick, if you submit a super chat to the show while we're live, we will vault your comment to the top. We'll spend some time talking about your comment and to get you featured on the show. Lacey, we're going to kick things off with you this week. This episode, written by Jon Favreau, directed by Kevin Tancarone. I don't know if I said that right. I know there's different pronunciations out there. That's my take on it.
I actually have it up. I have Tancarone.
Mark, how do you pronounce it this morning?
I said Tancherowan, and I've probably insulted him and his ancestors. So
that's
I could be
three different. Anyway, super talented. Loved it.
Yes, he did a great job. Yeah. So Lacey, the Gathering Storm, Chapter 4. We're now more than halfway done with the Book of Boba Fett. At least, if this is season 1 or whatever. What'd you give this episode on the Tamara Morrison face scale?
So I gave this episode a 7.5. Again, like the episode before this, I thought once again it was a very solid, great episode, and it's just like the title says, the Gathering Storm. It's building, it's going somewhere, and I feel like I'm being really hold back on my scores because I just know we're building to something that's going to be so crazy that I need to show that my scores make sense. But I definitely gave it the extra from the 7 to the 7.5 for all the bantha moments and the rancor moments. So basically any creatures get an extra half point.
All right. James, let's reel you in here. What did you give this chapter of the Book of Boba Fett?
I gave it a 7.5 as well, which is the same as last week. I don't know what it was. Something about the I don't know. I was kind of just going back and forth on like what I did and didn't like, and it just kind of was one of those things. Like a couple things pulled me from that perfect 10 and brought it down, and then it just landed around 7.5, and I felt pretty good with it.
All right, very good. Mark, how about you?
You know how boring are we? 7.5. I feel like I'm scoring on Dancing on Ice or something.
Boom, boom,
yeah,
boom.
Exactly for the same reason as you guys. I feel like there's way more to come. You've got to think logically on that scale, haven't you? And I really did enjoy this. I enjoyed last week's, but I really enjoyed this week's, and I didn't expect to get so much out of what we got. So yeah, a strong 7.5, 7.6.
All right.
That way towards 8, yeah.
Yes. All right, so I'm a little higher than the three of you. I gave this an 8.5 because I found myself watching this episode being really pleased with the fact that it felt like there was at least some sort of closing the door to the flashbacks a little bit now that he's fully healthy and all that. And I've been constantly pulling myself to, I want to go back to the present timeline. I want to see what's going on now with Boba Fett. And they are doing that. And then this was the first episode out of the 4 where I caught myself, with my mouth agape at some spots, or like laughing, or all the emotions kind of were pulled out of me on this episode. And I wasn't doing a reaction video, so it was genuine reaction. But 8.5 for me. I thought it was the best so far of the season, and I know we're now in a position where, like you said, Mark and Lacey and James, we've set the table for this final 3 episodes, and I'm very excited to see where we're going to go from here. And we'll talk more about how this episode ended with a little bit of a tease, I'm sure, a little later. But our score out of the 4 of us averages out to a 7.75, maybe a 7.76 with Mark ticking up a little bit there. But there's the faces
TRB.
there. There's our scores there, the
one.
7.75. And spoiler alert, our patrons at patreon.com/resistance broadcast. First of all, thank you for all of your support over there. You're the reason why this show exists. They gave this one, James, an 8.1. So like his ear on the 9th Tem face.
And you can tell too, because as people are popping in, Lacey's throwing up the comments, it's just like 8's 8.5. I saw a lot of 8.5. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Like, this seems perfectly right. Some 7.5, so 8.1 seems really accurate, even what we're seeing in the comments.
Yeah. And we do have a couple of comments from Patreon that we want to read out here with their ratings. First is Greg Spencer. Thank you, Greg, one of our patrons over there. He said 8.5 for me. This was a lot of fun. Some really cool sequences, including inside of a sarlacc. The sneaking mission into Jabba's palace was great. I hope Boba and Fennec took some time to clean up that kitchen. There's no way that's up to code. He said, are we done with the flashbacks? We seemingly caught up now, and Boba Fett is fully healed. Let's see how it goes forward. So thank you for that, Greg. And Grogu's Wrinkly Head, one of our favorite names on Patreon, chimed in with a 7.5 and said, still feels like we're building towards something. Hopefully Boba recruits a team of bounty hunters next week and finally goes to war. So those are the comments that we picked out of Patreon. So thank you for your scores. I believe collectively on both sides of the aisle, this was the highest scored episode yet. 8.1 from our patrons, 7.75 from the 4 of us. And it looks like you're saying, James, in the chat, a lot of in the 8s as well. So very exciting. Now we will head to the Easter egg portion of the show. Basically, we'll just go around and each point out either a pop culture reference or a direct Star Wars Easter egg or just something we noticed that was fun on the surface of the show here. And before we do that, just want to give a shout out to weirdbrothers.com. We partnered with a small business out of Virginia who creates coffee, and we created a brew with them called the Resistance Brew. So if you go to weirdbrothers.com and look up the Resistance Brew, you buy a bag, you're supporting the podcast and a small business down in Virginia. So thank you to our friends over at Weird Brothers, and it's delicious. I have actually some in my tumbler here, so cheers. All right, Easter eggs it is. Mark, was there anything that you caught in this particular episode that you're like, that's a reference to this, or that reminds me of this, or anything like that?
The big thing for me was seeing the spoilers was Fett with the silencer bomb again. Fennec using that on the sarlacc. That was just that was so good. So that gave me a big buzz because again it's that whole merging of of what I mean, he shouldn't, but what you kind of would consider prequel stuff and OT stuff, all coming together. That was a big buzz, and just seeing little the OOM droid in the palace that they're chasing around the kitchen, and just all the little nods like that.
Absolutely.
We have a friend of ours, Sander, who writes the guide on Panther for each episode, and he pointed out the kitchen droid, which apparently was, I think it was seen in an episode of the Clone Wars at some point. Obviously, like General Grievous when he starts waving.
Yeah,
he's in Dex's diner. The same type of droid is serving pancakes and stuff in Dex's diner in Attack of the Clones.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah. So it's all that sort of stuff. So all the little corner of the eye nods, I think, are excellent. And just to think that Matt Berry's voice was torturing that gonk droid in Return of the Jedi, I just love the thought of that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. James, how about you? You catch anything?
To be honest, no. Like I kept my eyes open the whole episode, and like, there were those little things, like I was like, okay, that's the droid from Return of the Jedi. You know what I mean? I'm like familiar with that. And then also the other droid that you mentioned too, that shows up in Clone Wars and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. There's a couple like little things like that, but I didn't really feel like there was any like cultural references in this episode. I mean, you should just skip me and see if you guys have some, but like nothing really popped out to me as far as like, it felt like a lot of the things that we've had before. Okay, here's the desert, here's the sarlacc, here's the ship, you know what I mean? And like, that's the whole scene. There wasn't like, it wasn't like there was like a ship flying in the background that you're like, oh, look at that,
Right.
Maybe there's more, but I even like went on, Reddit, like looking around and stuff. And I was like, it doesn't really feel like anybody's like crazy jumping out like, did you see the thing? So I don't know what you get. What do you guys got?
All right, Lacey, what do you got?
So I think similar to Mark talking about like kind of prequel references, I feel like this episode probably had the most Mandalorian references of all of them. In the beginning, he's riding the bantha past the skeleton that we see when he's flying over Tatooine in the sand, the same skeleton from the bantha.
Oh, right. That's cool.
We see the flash charges from episode 5 or chapter 5 with Toro Calican, right? That's his name. I didn't like that character.
That is his name.
That kind of thing. The guy at the beginning that fixes Fennec Shand is actually a like famous Grammy award-winning like songwriter and stuff like that, which is kind of cool because it's like one of those things that it's like Jon Favreau is just pulling all these different types of people from all different places in the world into this, because it just shows how impactful Star Wars is and how everybody loves Star Wars, no matter where you come from and like what you're into. It's like everybody seems to be a Star Wars fan. So it's just interesting to see when we talk about Easter eggs every week, we end up also talking about who's making a cameo this week, because it's like Jon Favreau's bringing all his buddies in. I think the biggest Easter egg for me this episode was the one that everybody is naturally freaking out about, because I did too, is the little nod to The Mandalorian at the end with the little musical cue with the flute and the Mando theme that immediately, it's so funny. Here I am, a Star Wars fan watching Boba Fett in 2022, and I was like, oh my God, the Mandalorian theme! Like I was like freaking out because I was just so excited.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I felt the same way. It almost felt like the real rock star is showing up soon or something. It was a very strange feeling for me. I'm with you on that. I had a couple. One might be a stretch. I'm gonna see what Mark thinks about it, because it's about the same.
Thundercat. That's the guy's name, by the way. The Grammy award-winning musical person. Thundercat.
Oh, I did think of one actually. Go ahead, John.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What do you got?
No, I want you to say it because it's your turn. Go.
All right. Well,
you won't take.
You were talking about.
Sure.
Mark was talking about the seismic chargers, and for some reason, when she releases it and it goes into its mouth, I thought of Jaws when he puts the tank in the shark's mouth, and she kind of drops a one-liner, kind of like Brody does, "Smile, you son of a bitch." She says, what does she say? Fire in the hole. That reminded me of Jaws, just putting the thing in the beast's mouth, it blowing up, and there you go. So that's maybe. Well, you'd have to ask,
it made me think of,
or the director about it. But
it made me think of Jurassic Park 2, where she lands on the glass and the monster's below her, like where in Jurassic Park 2, where she's on the glass and she knows that her death is below her and it's like starting to crack type thing.
Right. The other one, the other droid that calls R2D to a feisty little one, I think was one of the cooks in the kitchen, EV-99.
That's actually the one I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Which ends up being a bartender in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, or the same type of droid, at least. At least
Yeah,
this one,
yeah.
I think, is the one from Jabba's palace. So it's funny how Bib Fortuna turned these guys into like cooks and stuff. And then the last one I have is so I can always point out a sound in Star Wars and say that's been somewhere else. And so when she cuts the bars, when she cuts those steel bars to break into Jabba's palace, I'm like, I've heard that sound effect before. Oh, here we go. Yep, David just stole my thunder. Okay, so
I was saying he agrees with you. I was saying because you weren't sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so exactly what he's putting here. It's the same exact sound after Anakin beheads Count Dooku. And I saw someone else, I think it was Palpa Memes or something on Twitter, had posted that as well to David Collins. And I was like, yes, that I knew that. And like, it was just such a interesting and vindicating feeling, but also like, it's a completely different thing that's happening, but they're using the same sound effect. But I still think it's cool that they punched it in there because I doubt most people would notice that. So, yeah, those are mine. I don't know if we have many more. Anyone else want to throw any out there?
Well, I got the one that I dawned on me. I was actually watching the episode and I'm looking at Black Krrsantan standing there and he's like so angry at those like gamblers, and I'm like, why is he?
Oh
angry
yes,
at him?
yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he picking on these guys? Are they being extra loud? I couldn't quite figure out. Then he goes after him and he starts beating him, throwing him up, throwing him around the room and all this. And even after the speech and everything, I was like, it didn't dawn on me. And then just like it all of a sudden hit me why he was after them, because they're Trandoshans. Like it was like a hate crime thing where he's looking.
They presented a pelt in the first episode. Yeah,
he sees these
Oh,
people,
right.
and he just knows that their species inherently are the species that like enslave the Wookiees and all this other stuff. And I was like, it's not spelled out. Like you would have to know that. And even me being a Star Wars fan, I'm sitting there like, why is this guy mad at these people? And even knowing as much as I know, that's such a deep reference to this character and why he would be angry about seeing these particular species of aliens, these people. And even though they're innocent, they don't have anything to do with that. Or I don't know if they're innocent, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, those ones presented a pelt to Boba Fett in episode 1.
Yeah,
a Wookiee pelt.
Yeah, true.
They see it as like an honor to do that.
But I thought it was interesting too, because then if you rewatch that scene and then see like Jessica Biel's character like explaining, like you were this champion and stuff. I thought she was just.
You mean Jennifer Biel?
Jennifer
Biel?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Jessica Biel.
To be totally honest, I'd never heard of this person before this show.
No, that's fine. You said an actress, just the wrong one. It is a name.
You said a name. Yeah.
Same on that thread really quick. Jamie does make a good point, which I was going to bring up, is it's not why steps at a Wookiee, and he rips off the guy's arms, which I found out that their arms grow back, so it's not that big of a deal as one might think of losing their
arms. And if you plant the arm under the ground, it grows a Trandoshan.
John, shut up.
Isn't that what starfish do? If you cut a part off, it grows it into a starfish, right? No?
I think you're thinking of sponges.
Maybe. We'll see.
Like sponges.
All right. Well, absorb this, because it's time to give out the Mando code, Lacey. And we have our season-long giveaway contest. I reveal a number on each episode. And on last week's episode, I gave out the 3rd number in the code. And now I will be revealing the 4th number. And at the end of the season finale, we'll give out the final number and let you know how to submit the code. You have to unscramble it and submit it the right way, and we'll let you know how to do that. But whoever does it and successfully wins will win the Star Wars Black Series Boba Fett re-armored wearable electronic helmet. I don't know why they had wearable, but you can wear it on your head. So good luck with that. The 4th number in the Mando code is 1. So jot that down, get it tattooed, whatever you got to do, and good luck as you collect 3 more numbers to go. All right, so now let's get into just an open discussion. Let's have a chat. That's why we're here, right? So,
Can I jump
Mark,
into a super chat really quick?
You absolutely can.
Okay, so we do have a super chat. Thank you so much from nerdy_Seb, who said, prediction, next episode, the Pikes attack Mos Pelgo and Home Fett recruits Cobb Vanth to join the squad. I think they'll do a Seven Samurai-esque team. So as we get into our discussion of what's next and what's to come, I think that's definitely an interesting point because it did give off that vibe, like I said at the end, with the Mandalorian noise and the flute sound. They got everybody so hyped as like, something is coming.
It'd be cool to see Cobb Vanth again. Mark, did you have a standout moment from this episode that was your favorite scene or favorite shot or anything like that?
Normally there is, but this one there wasn't, and I say that with praise because I thought it was consistently good all the way through. The little chase around the kitchen was a bit goofy and fun, and it wasn't necessarily needed. You know, it was okay. I enjoyed that. But there were so many cool little moments. Biding his time, checking how many guards were at the back door of the palace was interesting because you expect Fett just to walk straight in. So that biding his time thing, all these little layers to the character, you know, the patience. Yeah. I said it when me and Mark were talking on Making Tracks earlier, you know, he's almost humble. You know, his situation's kind of humbled him, and he's got through it because he shouldn't. He should be dead on the sands of Tatooine, as he keeps saying.
Right, yeah.
No,
everyone does the voice. Everyone, when they do
got to do it. Got to do the voice.
Every time we have someone on, no matter who it is, James and John definitely do it, but no matter who it is that comes on, they always do this like Boba Fett Tem voice, and they're like,
but he's still here, isn't he? And I think with this one as well, because like you guys said earlier, they've resolved the flashback thing. And so now we're up to speed, and now the last 3 episodes should be in the present, which is a bit like, kind of felt like WandaVision did that with the first 2 or 3 that were like weird or wacky, and then he got up to code, and then on you went. It's just all setting up nicely, the relationship with Fennec and such. So if I had to pick a moment, I would probably pick the Sarlacc pit scene with seeing the Firespray, sorry.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Hanging over the Sarlacc pit and looking down and just thinking, I know what's going to happen. I'm waiting for the beak, and I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm like, do you like scary jumpy moments? Why? Have you seen Return of the Jedi? Come on, you know. So and then like a Raptor on the window screen, you know, it was really enjoyed that.
I agree. So I'll just hop in and say that was also my favorite shot, as it slowly covered up the opening, and he was looking down at it.
Lacey, are you the same? Because I am as well. That was the best thing in the episode, in my opinion.
Okay. So Lacey, then what is your favorite shot?
No, let James go. Finish up, because you guys are all talking about the same thing. I hate the Sarlacc pit. Go ahead,
James. Maybe that's the reasoning, but I guess just there was something about I don't know, like there's something interesting about Slave One in general, like when it's flying it's like this, and when it's landed it's like this kind of thing. So like it feels like it has this weird anti-gravity sort of thing that's going on. Like you would never see, like we see X-Wings hover off the ground. So can they hover like vertically? Like, I don't know. You never see it, you know? So it's just kind of one of those things. Like, I think like anytime you can put a familiar ship in a very like odd space because it's just using that like anti-gravity or whatever, it just gets interesting. And those particular shots of it hovering over the Sarlacc pit felt very fresh, very new. And this is a bigger thing about the episode. I really was not feeling the first half of this episode. It was until once they got the ship and everything past that, the whole scene over the Sarlacc, I was like, this feels like a movie. Like I'm trying to figure out, it felt like it was in 24 frames per second, you know, or something. The color was right. But like so many other scenes previously in this episode felt like television. Like it felt almost low budget or fan filmy, or they're trying to recreate that feel of cinematic, I don't know, whatever. And it just wasn't landing. So to me, when that happened in the show, I was like, yes, finally, this is what I want. This feels like a movie. I feel like I'm watching the Boba Fett movie now.
It's really funny that Nerdy Seb said this. Am I the only one who thought the Sarlacc died? I thought it did too, because he blasted a hole in the side of it to get out.
Lacey, if I may, no one's ever really gone.
Oh, jeez. All right, should I go
I
then?
don't remember a Sarlacc in Phantom Menace.
Oh,
go ahead.
So my favorite part of course it is the bantha parts, specifically the beginning where he's like sitting around the campfire with the bantha, which first of all, I didn't know banthas bellowed until I watched with the subtitles. I always watch with subtitles no matter what I'm watching. But I just loved how it was just like, I'm hungry, and he's like, oh, you want this? And then he feeds it, and then they cut to its tail wagging. Oh my god, I lost it. It's like the cutest thing ever. And then when he's like saying goodbye to it, and he's like, now go be free, and the thing's just slowly being like, Mrr. Like,
right.
it's just so
And
funny.
then
But
me remembering the first episode of season 2, Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
So something else I wanted to note really cool is that I noticed in this episode specifically, there were a lot of dolly shots, which I really enjoyed. So like the first shot that opens up with, which is a beautiful shot of the bacta tank with the twin suns sunset behind it and the wind's blowing through the curtains. It looks like a perfume commercial. It's like a dolly shot where it comes in close. And then there's the part where he's at the table with the families and it's a dolly shot into his face. And there's this beautiful shot. It's so quick. You have to make sure you're looking for it, which is a shot from behind the fire pit, which is roasting something. And it's a slider shot down the table. It is such a nice shot. So I have to give the director, Kevin, mad props. I know he's more on the what people have been calling the rookie side. I think that's a bad term. He's had tons of work done. Like he's done tons of work, including the
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
He did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He did the big Mortal Kombat series that went viral that people really loved. So that's kind of cool that he did this episode because there were a lot of fight scenes, so it makes sense. But his shots were beautiful. I thought he did an amazing job. So I really, really love a good dolly shot or a push, if you will.
Yeah.
A good push.
Yeah, you do. I gotta admit something, and this was my favorite episode yet. But when it opened, and the first thing I see is a bacta tank, I rolled my eyes. I was like, oh,
I know you did. And the funny thing is I thought that when I saw it, I was like, John is somewhere right now being like, ugh. But the thing is, we still haven't seen Empire scenes yet. And he said that in an interview that we're going to the Empire period and we haven't seen it yet.
He may have.
Do you think he's lying?
He may have just confused things, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah. I agree. I think when he was talking about that, I think he might have got slightly mixed up because going back to, I don't know. I mean, this is a slightly different point, but I think we've got post sarlacc Fett and pre sarlacc Fett. So you before Jedi and after Jedi. That's the cutoff point, if you like. And to me, from a physical point of view, because you see Tem now and like, God, the guy's looking buff and he's looking great, and but Boba was always fairly slim. Jeremy was quite a slim guy, tall and slim.
Yeah.
Whereas Tem is obviously he's like Django because it's the same guy. You know?
I just laugh at everyone being like, "Oh, dad bod" in season 2 of Mandalorian. I'm like, that is not a dad bod. Look at my father. Bill Gill does not have bod like that, and that is not a dad bod.
No, I've got a dad bod. But yeah, you know, I think in my head canon, being inside the sarlacc, but all the acid, all the gunk and crap that's in there affects him physically, obviously affects him mentally and alters his perception on life and the world because he's you know, we said on Fantha recently, he's like a trauma survivor. He's been through this massive life-changing thing.
And then he dives back in.
Yeah, and then that says everything about how much he wants that armor, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, that was a great little thought process to think, well, you know, you've watched all this stuff and he's healing and he's with the Tuskens and he's in the desert and yada yada, and then he starts taking the bacta. Why is he still using bacta? Presumably, 5 years on, and him going back into the pit to get his armor and coming out and pouring the water on him. What's that going to do? That kind of answers why he's still recovering. And then, of course, you have the scene with the droid going, "You are now fully recovered from the bacta." So it's like,
right,
that's them saying, right, game on now. You know, we can go now.
And you know, it's I don't know if it's loyalty to his dad and feeling an obligation to get that armor back, or if it's just it's still his like security blanket, because he even says
he said that in the episode. He said that
he says I can't go in there. Yeah, I'm not as intimidating without my armor or whatever. But anytime he faces his past, like going back to that solo pick, he almost got pulled back in and killed again. So anytime he like looks back to his past, he gets himself back in trouble. Whereas he's like the more like you said, Mark, humble, logical Boba Fett of today seems like he has a better chance of surviving than well, I just got to go get my armor. I got to go back in there and go get that. And I mean, he almost got killed again, which is amazing. If it wasn't for her pushing his buttons, so to speak.
Yeah, but I think if they did go back to Empire and I'd love to see some. That's my favorite film, so I'd love to see something from Empire because we've added stuff to Jedi in a way. It'd be great to add something to Empire. Yeah. But my head tells me, and this is probably being way too picky and way too, it's not really. It doesn't matter. But just from a physical presentation point of view, it almost feels like you'd need somebody else to play Fett physically. Obviously, tender voice like you always did before, but Fett as a figure always appeared slightly different, and it just, to me, my head canon tells me that time in the sarlacc and getting over it physically changed him, because there's no doubt as a silhouette it's a different silhouette. So no less impressive though. So I'm loving what they're doing with it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, this episode for me, I just like, even the kitchen scene, like you said, it was silly and stuff, but I like when he bopped that creature so it fell back into the pot. I laughed. I was like, that's something.
Those are the frogs that Grogu eats.
Yeah. Oh, those are the same frogs?
Mm-hmm.
You see, like those silly little moments, like just like Jabba flicking the creature off the edge at the pod race, like those little silly Star Wars moments where something eats something randomly and it just like adds a little levity, and I love that stuff. And then that droid, he's walking over the fire and he's chasing him and he chokes him and stuff.
I love that he shuts himself off. Yeah. That was my favorite. He was just like, and I'm gonna just.
Yeah, I thought that was so fun and adventurous. It felt a little Fraggle Rocky or something to me.
Yes,
they're in like this like sort of like these tunnels and these hallways and stuff. So that felt cool. But then you also have the high adventure, and he turns back into old school Boba Fett, where he's just mowing down those Nikto bikers.
He went for it there.
He mowed them all down. And I'm like, that's old school Boba Fett. And there's certain lines where he rubs the bantha and he's like, go on, girl, you're going to be okay, and blah, blah, blah. But then at the same time,
banthas.
Yeah.
Baby banthas.
And then 2 minutes later, he goes old school Boba Fett. He said, I'm either getting my ship or I'm dying. And you're just like, see, he's still in there somewhere. He's still old school, but he's changing. And it's just a smart writing by Favreau to balance the old Fett, like you said, pre-Sarlacc, post-Sarlacc. And I think they're getting to a point now where, now that he's post-Tusken and we're more in the present, we're going to see a healthy blend of both versions of Boba Fett. And I think Favreau, being the guy who always wanted to write a Boba Fett story, was always cognizant of, we still need to keep him Boba Fett, but they're doing it very carefully. They're towing that line very carefully.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know when it's... Oh, go ahead.
No. Go on. I was hopping in. Go on. You carry on.
Well, what I was going to ruin it, because I was going to say, like, you guys are saying that, like, to be a little on the controversial side. I hated those scenes. I did not like them at all. I was like, get this.
Which
out
ones?
Of here. So the kitchen scene was one of them. I was like,
okay, Sebastian in The Little Mermaid. Someone was saying earlier, it made me laugh.
Exactly. I felt like I was watching like a 90s, like Stuart Little or something. I felt like I was going to see the camera from like the droid's point of view, and like Boba Fett like chasing after it, like at a like wide angle. I was like, get out of here. Like, I don't want to see this. They're like trying to chase the cat or something. They're trying to get it to go outside,
I loved it.
And I was like, I'm just not feeling this at all. Now, a quick little joke. Yeah, sure. I like he turns him off or you flicking off the thing. Like, that's funny to me, and I don't mind that stuff. But this was like a sequence. They're like, today we're going to shoot the whole sequence of them chasing the droids around and getting into hijinks and stuff. And I was like, I'm just not feeling it. And again, like, it felt like TV. I didn't feel like I was watching a Star Wars movie. I felt like I was watching these characters on, like, I don't know. It didn't hit with me. The other one that I was going to say too, and I want to go back into the positive, but like I said, the first half of the episode was not feeling it. When they first went to like save Fennec and he goes to that like tattoo parlor or whatever, I just was like, this is dumb. Like, I mean, I get the story. And
I thought it was adding sci-fi to the sci-fi fantasy.
It like, I don't mind the modders and stuff, and you want to say that, but like when I look at them, they feel like they're out of a CW show. they don't feel like they're in Star Wars to me. They feel like they are people, and then they're like sticking props on them, and they're like, that costume will do, and there's nothing really quite there. Like they're, you know, like, oh, I've modded my hand.
Oh my god.
That's when you went. That was your prop.
Yeah,
Johnny
no,
Depp,
like,
everybody. Welcome to
yeah,
the
they
podcast.
put like an Apple Watch over his eye or something. You know, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it, man. I'm not.
All right.
And
That's
then
all right.
the way, I don't know, the way they were like cutting between the scenes and stuff, like they were trying to make it epic, like she was being rebuilt or something. And I was like, it's not sinking in with me. But that all being said, like once they go to rescue the ship and they go on like the heist thing. Well, I mean, I know they're kind of doing the kitchen thing in there, but like once they're actually like in the ship and, you know, trying to get out and all that was really cool. Like blasting down the door and you see it like fall. They get out there, he's mowing down the people, they're in the sarlacc pit. Just like there was so much to that I was like, this is all cool. I really like this.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just had to point out a couple of those weird scenes. Like I was like, this just feels like weird TV, like almost that like CW kind of like Flash universe television that I'm just not into.
All right. So, Mark, what were you going to get into there?
Oh, blimey, where was I going with that? Well, quickly to jump
you're like, I love it.
That's right. No. The modders scene. Two things. One, it doubled down, I think, on the whole Vespa thing last week, where everybody was, you know, very divided on their thoughts on that one. And bringing those, you know, and bringing those characters in. So it kind of went there again. And I kind of liked it. It was something a little bit different. It just showed that Tatooine as a planet, because we've seen Mos Espa, we've seen Mos Eisley.
True.
We've seen Mos Pelgo in The Mandalorian, so they're really developing the planet as a place, and Jabba's. So it was just something new. So I was kind of fine with that. And the thought I had talking on Phantom earlier was it just threw me back to the Kieran Gillen run on Darth Vader when he had a lot of characters turn up with like modifications and cybernetic bits. And obviously, I'm still waiting for Valance to turn up at some point. If that doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed. So it kind of all felt with Valance, the bounty hunter.
Oh yeah.
I'm enjoying probably. My favourite comic has been for a while. Has been the Bounty Hunters comic. I think it's consistently good, and then you know he's been kind of prominent in that, so that's been enjoyable. But going back to the bikers thing, I adored that scene. In the same way, last week they wanted to put a cap on the Tusken Raider story because he was obviously with them for a long time, and everything that's happening is to serve the story of Boba Fett. It's the book of Boba Fett, and every episode's a chapter. So everything that happens is to serve that story, and that Tusken thing last week. Completely, and we're going to see that ramifications of that go on for ages, and this was another one of those. I've got some scores to settle, you know, and I'm thinking, well, is he sort of saying this and we're going to see it over the next few episodes? No, it's Boba Fett, get it done. So he wipes those guys out. That sequence, just I can't wait to watch it again. Just seeing the ship come in quietly like that was just gorgeous.
And even then it gives him like the attitude of like, yikes. Like you,
which is good
rough,
because he's been so passive this whole time that she's probably like, oh, so that's who you really are. When the chips are down and someone burns you, this is who you are, and now I'm seeing it. So I better not. She may be like thinking twice about betraying him at this point, which is But
do you remember in Attack of the Clones? In Attack of the Clones, there's that young Daniel Logan Boba Fett. There's that glee on his face when he's trying to take out Obi-Wan in the Outboard film.
He's laughing. Yeah.
He's loving it. And there's still a little bit of that left in the adult Boba Fett.
That's so great.
Say, it kind of came out in that little moment. And I mean,
that's true.
He has been very passive and like the table scene when he's talking to all the other gang leaders, and he's very conciliatory, and he's like, "Let's work. There's always a way. Let's work out a way."
Right.
And he's obviously this whole episode. A massive part of this episode was about coming to that understanding with Fennec.
Yes.
Always.
Why she's sticking around? Yeah.
Yeah. But he's still Boba Fett, and she knows the guy's
exactly.
Still Boba Fett. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I do have a random question though.
Go ahead.
So I was thinking about the sarlacc scene when I was watching it before we did this again. And they dropped the seismic charge down, and you see it kind of expand through the sand. Do you think that woke up the crate dragon, which then starts attacking the town? Do you think like all these things are connected so that like this happens here, which then drives this to happen? Because I was thinking about it, And first of all, that episode's amazing. I want to go back and watch it. Mandalorian season 2. But this town keeps getting attacked. And I kept thinking in my head, why would they put a town there if they keep getting attacked? And then you see this charge that kind of just takes off in the water. And it kind of reminded me of like a monster movie where, you know, they do drilling in the ocean and the drilling wakes up the monster, which then attacks the city type thing.
Yeah. That's a great thought.
Like Cloverfield.
Yeah.
No, what's the crazy, stupid one with the giant shark? Megalodon or whatever?
Oh,
The Meg.
Yeah.
The Meg. That's what it was. Yeah.
Academy Award winner Jason Statham.
Yes. And the White Shroot.
But I was thinking about that and I was like, it would be a really cool way. Obviously, I don't know if this is official, but I'm just putting it together, like showing you how everybody's decision within Star Wars affects other people, whether they realize it or not. Like his actions then killed people, killed banthas. What if the bantha that gets eaten is the bantha he was riding? Like you don't know.
That's
that
true.
type of thing.
Yeah. Well, then you could write the from a certain point of view story about that bantha. There you go.
My
Done.
John, speaking of everything, then are you still on the same page? Because with the direction that Fennec is going to go, because I would say that while I've kind of been on both sides of that argument, this episode really made me feel that she's on his side and
me too.
Not gonna betray him.
Yeah.
I was like, there's something about this episode that made me kind of flip on that.
No, I still feel that something's going on because she tried to stop him from going out to the streets. She's like, I can go for you instead. I feel like she's trying to minimize his presence a bit, and we're still trying to figure out who sent who. She knows her way around. She knows how to break into Jabba.
Yeah, we know the references from all before, but was there anything in this episode that feeds into that theory? I don't really think there was.
I just said he wanted to go out to the streets, and she said, I can go for you. She said that again in this episode.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank, it happened before. So the seismic charge scene happened prior to season 2.
So I still think even some of the looks she gives and stuff, they're at least wanting us to maybe think that. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but again, you know, and Mark, I know, you know, you're aware of how they pitch these things. Robert Rodriguez and Favreau were like, it's gangster, it's Godfather, and we were very into it. You don't have a gangster movie without a big betrayal within the family. And
well, let me just point something to you. The latest issue of Empire magazine, I'm a subscriber. And there's the Godfather, right?
There you go.
You know, and so it's all there. You're absolutely right. I mean, Fennec at the moment is so on side, it's crazy, and she's being cut in, like he says, you're part of this, and I want you to profit from it, and yada yada. Because she's like, I'm an independent contractor and don't work for anyone, and I'll work for you, but I don't want to work for you, sort of thing. And I just think, I just mentioned it to James, you know, the Bounty Hunter comic, which I adore, and these guys are interacting all the time. You know, that bridge scene on the Executor from Empire, those guys are bouncing around each other all the time.
Right.
And they're stabbing each other in the back all the time. And it's that's just what bounty hunters do. And I know Fett is now no longer technically a bounty hunter. He's moved on. It's his new profession and so on. And he's
wanting to change all that.
I loved that line from Fennec. Yes. What was the line that she says? She's like when
you get to leave or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The first time I watched the episode, that hit me hard. I was like, wow, that is a great line from Fennec Shand of like, we don't get to choose when we want to leave or something like that.
Yeah. But Fett's saying, you know, we're the smart ones. They're how many jobs have you gone on where you're thinking, why am I doing this? You know, the gang lords are carried into town on, you know, great big platforms.
How many battles and things could have been avoided had, you know, just we waited on this thing or this thing, but they sent in a bounty hunter to go fix it, and
they made it clear that this isn't a life debt thing. He said, "You help me get my ship, and we're good." And she's like, "I'll stick around for the ride." She's sticking around because she wants to. And why would an assassin who is been around that long, who has always been working by her own methods and her own drive and stuff, just want to be a second fiddle to somebody just because? There's more going on here. I just
Crimson Dawn feels like it's got to come into this at some point, and you've seen in the comics that Crimson Dawn had double agents even through the Empire, And
Yes.
so there's all these people seeded around in different places, and I just feel that possibly, maybe as a storyteller, I don't know, it's all spitballing at this point. Maybe Fennec is a secret agent for Crimson Dawn, because Fett could be a threat, couldn't he? So, and they're going to want to quash that. So who knows?
Yeah. It's very curious what's going to happen in the next 3 episodes, and who's going to pop in. Like, can Kira show up? We've been talking about that. There's a lot of other people that can show up.
I did love how they knew each other, though, at the beginning of the episode, where she's like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm Boba Fett." And she goes, "He's dead." And he goes, "I was."
So,
and then, like, he knew who she was. He's like, he knew exactly who. I loved that. I loved that they already knew of each other, because it's like, you have this big Star Wars galaxy, but then at the same time, it's really small, and it brings it back to this level of, like you were saying, Mark, like, they all know each other. The bounty hunter industry, like with Mando, where you see in The Mandalorian, they all know each other. They're all aware of people.
Except Boba
even
apparently
like
doesn't know Black Krrsantan because he's trying to give him advice.
Take
it from me.
I think he does know him, though, because I thought this last week, because he referred to him as a gladiator, didn't he? He totally knows him. But I think with these characters, it's almost like if somebody refers to another character by their name, it's almost like they're giving them something, and they don't want to give anything to anybody else. Everything's earned, but they don't want to give anyone the satisfaction of your reputation precedes you, which is why that Fennec Boba scene was so cool, because he knew she was a master assassin, and she ultimately knew he was Boba Fett, and that alone is like, whoa, you're Boba Fett, almost, So they don't want to give anything away. So I think they were being very cute. Also for the audience, real world, I think they were trying to introduce him as well.
Yeah, I also like too when they have the confrontation at the Oasis again, because like Boba Fett like sees him throw the guy down, you know what I mean, and then he passes him, and you know, and they kind of have the talk afterwards and stuff. Like, I liked that. It looks like you need a job and all this, and like I was like, man, he's recruiting him. This is really cool. Yeah. I did want to go back though really quick though, because we mentioned how it's not really a life debt. So what do you guys think the angle here is? Like, they come to this conclusion that, all right, my debt's paid if I go on this mission. All right, I'll hang along for the ride. And then like a little while later, we're going to see Boba Fett introduce her as someone who owed him a life debt, and that's why she's here. And is that an angle? Like, what's going on with that?
Oh, I don't know.
Kind of, I think maybe that's culturally, maybe that's just a clever way of explaining why she stuck around, because I don't suppose they sit there over a cup of hot chocolate having deep fireplace side chats about each other's thought processes. So maybe for her to be there with him and work with him, and like I say, Fett knows who she is after all these years, then loads of other people are going to go, well, Fennec Shand, because when she came into The Mandalorian, she was a big deal. You're seeing her in Bad Batch, and I think there's stuff to come in Bad Batch that's going to back up a lot of what we're seeing now. So I think her reputation is probably as high as any character we've ever seen in Star Wars, in the underworld anyway. She's well respected, so there's got to be a reason why she's there. So maybe, because we talked about this, the whole life debt thing, like I don't see Black Krrsantan as being the kind of character that would honor a life debt or even offer it. Oh yeah, you saved me, great, thanks. Agree. So Chewie. So the thought process of that was like, two different Wookiees having different thought processes on a life debt, for example, is like comparing Bo-Katan to Boba Fett. They're Mandalorians, but totally different thought processes on being a Mandalorian. But with Fennec, I think just to say life debt is a nice, galactically, culturally, all cultures would understand that, like, oh, you honor that, okay, yeah, fair enough, and it almost wouldn't be questioned. Just as a let's draw a line,
their team up wouldn't be questioned. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just thinking outside the box, maybe.
Yeah, it just seemed weird because when to me when she was introduced as, I brought her back to life, so she owes me a life debt. That's why she's here. I felt that was like him saying, like, she's a slave, or like, I own you, or whatever. We've had this discussion before in the show where I was trying to figure out their dynamic, because they felt like friends, but I thought she was supposed to be like someone who's repaying her favor of being alive for the rest of forever,
Well, I think that's,
whatever.
But this that seems like what
through that,
how we were initially supposed to believe it, and I think the reason why they put that scene in this episode is so we understand that's not the case, and there's other reasons why.
That's what I'm saying. I was kind of like, oh wait, hold on, this makes me
you guys
rethink their whole dynamic. She's along for the ride. She doesn't owe him anything.
Right.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
she had
yeah.
a life debt on, and that's why she was here.
Did you notice the retcon, so to speak, in the scene where Boba Fett finds Fennec Shand
You
They took
didn't
the
hear
spurs sound out.
Yeah.
and the radio?
Yes.
So when they first aired that scene, it was he had his armor already because you hear
They
his
wanted
radio.
fans. They wanted fans to get it. Yeah, that it was him.
Filoni wanted fans to
Or
get
they
it, but the
just didn't
question is
think
like,
that far in
did they?
advance.
Yeah, did they know that he was going to be the one that finds her, but they weren't sure at what point? Did he have his armor yet? Did he have his not? And Favreau's probably like, it's not going to work. We can't have him have the armor yet, but whatever. It's Star Wars, and that's fine with me. It's just funny how there's a clear difference in the scene now, which everyone had a nitpick about the Nexu or whatever the creature is not being in the background on the Geonosis battleground.
Yeah.
But this one, I think, I'm surprised people haven't talked more about it yet. Well, maybe because.
But I just think what they'll do next week is they'll have a flashback scene when Cobb Vanth walks up to Fennec and looks and goes, "Don't know her," and walks off, and then Boba Fett will walk up and say, "Go, I'll rescue her."
Yeah.
He just goes, "That's a shame."
She's dead.
I knew she wasn't dead.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. I like that. So, 3 episodes to go. Mark, do you think that was a bit of a false tease, or do you think we can fully expect Din Djarin to pop in with some new wheels shortly?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that music cue again, like Lacey said. How crazy to think, and what especially me, the old fart, watching a live action show of a character I've been playing with toys since like the very early 1980s, and it's his show, and then and all of a sudden I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Hang on. That's the Mando thing. That's the Mando thing, and so they totally teased it, and you knew they came to an understanding, and also it in the short term anyway. We might work around that kind of cul-de-sac of the end of season 2 Mando when they're on the bridge and it's like Bo's gonna like, I need the Darksaber and we have to fight for it, and so we're gonna work around that moment of Din going, just take it, I ain't bothered, just take it. No, I can't just take it, So we're gonna get around that moment somehow and come back to it maybe in Mandalorian. So yeah, I would be thrilled to bits if we did see him, because like somebody said in the chat earlier, it does feel like we're building up that 7 samurai.
Yeah, they're like totally passing each other, where you see the flash charges in the night and he's like, it's like, oh, they're in the same place but they're not right there,
like I love when they do that.
Yeah. We saw Pelly last week. You saw him past the helmets on the spikes.
Yes.
So Din walk past it and you saw Mando Fett look down.
It adds further suspension of disbelief when you're just
world
seeing
building,
all these, world building, other points of view. It's adding layers of realness to the story. I love that. I think that's so cool how they've been doing that and not doing it like banging you over the head with it. It's like, those 2 flashes. If you remember, they had those with those bikes and back then on the Gunslinger episode. So I think that's so cool. But I think there's going to be a lot going on in these final episodes, though.
I haven't said it out loud, but I've been kicking around the idea of like if they did a movie that was not like before or after, but happened at the same time as one of the original trilogy movies kind of thing. And so like as things are happening, they're like, did you hear that the Death Star was just destroyed? That's like, towards the end of the movie, it's like, they could play in like the characters' actions throughout the movie are result of the main story that's going on, and they can see things happening from afar, like they're fighting over here and they look over there and they're like, oh, there's, and we know what that is because we've seen in the battle, but now we're seeing it from like 100 yards away or whatever. I just thought like it would be really cool if they just played like just on the outskirts of it, and I know they've done it, I'm sure, with comics and stuff like that in the past, but I think like in this world of Mandalorian and Boba Fett, where they're kind of flipping between the 2 shows now, it feels even more real that they could pull something like that off.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So next week, I'm trying to think of who's left for directors. I know we have Filoni, which we're presuming Chapter 6. Bryce Dallas Howard, maybe next week.
Yeah.
And then there was rumors of whether Favreau's doing it or not, or if it's going to be Robert Rodriguez again. At this point, I'm hoping it's not Robert Rodriguez because I feel like, no offense to him, his episodes have been the weakest in terms of direction, and I'm not trying to be offensive to him in that way.
Last week,
But
I saw a lot of negativity on like, oh, I didn't like this episode directed by Robert Rodriguez. That's why.
and I loved it
a lot.
So yeah, I
laugh when people say that. They're like, because the amount of skill and technique and education and creativity and stuff that goes into these projects, any project, I just laugh that keyboard people are like, oh, what a terrible director. Really? Let's see you do it. I would love to see people do what he's doing.
It's how they phrase it. It's how people phrase it.
I wasn't saying it like even.
No, I'm not saying you, James. I'm saying in general, people were like, "Oh, Robert Rodriguez, meh." Like, really?
I'm sure some people were saying that, but I guess what I was reiterating was somebody just saying like, "I'm not vibing this angle, like the direction here." People like certain directors, they don't like other directors.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
We talked about whether we want Wes Anderson to do a Star Wars movie. Like, some people would be like, no, because he just doesn't fit. But if he did do it, then somebody would be like, I don't like this. Why am I? And then they get to the end, they see it's directed by Wes Anderson. They're like, oh, what? Oh, well, that's why. I don't like his movies or whatever. It's just a taste thing.
Yeah.
I just want to chime in here really quick. Albert.
His directorial taste.
Yeah, Albert in the chat said, to be fair, a lot of fans have had better ideas than what they've been doing with Boba Fett. I'm not necessarily talking about ideas. I'm talking about the skill it takes to actually be a director or, run a camera on one of these crews, like that type of technical skill. I'm not necessarily talking about.
That's a subjective thing. Like,
sure,
maybe there's fan ideas that are really horrible. So
I have horrible ideas. I can tell you right straight up.
I mean, I think we could all.
Sorry, go. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark. I'm just going to quickly say, like, I think we could all agree that we got something from this series so far that I don't think anybody would have expected. That's all.
Oh, big time. We say this a lot about different ideas and such, and we're only 4 episodes in. Last week, everyone was really piling in on Streets of Mos Espa, or Streets of Mos Vespa, as I call it.
Yeah, the Vespas. Yes, never-ending Vespa talk.
Exactly, and there's, our thing was like, well, there's going to be a reason why there's these kids there, and there's a reason for everything, and we're halfway through a 7-episode season, hopefully only the first season of many, fingers crossed.
Right.
Not expecting a torrent of stuff like Star Trek's getting. Good grief, they've just announced about 100 episodes over the next 2 years over there. But
Wild.
we get what we get. So I just feel that when we get to I keep saying episode 7, chapter 7 of this, and we look back and at this conversation or conversations we've had in the past, and go, oh, now I get why this, and now I get why that. It's always difficult to criticize or critique or something mid-flow.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
We're always allowed to criticize. It's right. Entertainment. We think what we want, but it's a tough one until certain elements sort of progress and bring themselves forward. So
I did it with Mando. I mean, there were episodes of Mando I didn't like necessarily, and I was like, but I know that there's a bigger picture here happening, so I just remind people to kind of like take a step back.
I mean, that's always the case. Like, for what we do, like, we are going to be on every week rating the episode and being like, I didn't like this one, but then those characters end up being awesome. I mean, that's just, that's the Ahsoka thing. Like, this character's dumb. I never want to see that character ever again. And then it's like, yeah, but let the character go on the journey, and now she's your favorite character, so it's like,
right.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you just have to like, oh, I don't know anything about this Sophie Thatcher character now, and I don't really care particularly, but by the end of this show, I might be like, dude, give her own series. Like, I don't know what she's going to do in later episodes, you never know.
And it's funny because I think season 1 of Mandalorian, and people had known that Ming-Na Wen was cast, and among others. And I think it was like the 3rd chapter, or right before the 3rd chapter, Deborah Chow's. And like there was a Star Wars author who like came at Jon Favreau on Twitter about, I can't believe he's not using this person and doing this, blah. And it's it's ironic because they're an author, and we're at chapter 2 of 8, and it's like if Jon Favreau read 4 chapters of your book and then started tearing you up, you'd be like, well, read my whole book. You got to do that with this show, like you're saying, Mark. So it's Favreau is he's all about the long game, and there's no like just randomness to what he's doing. He's a very good storyteller. So I think though like I didn't love the prologue of chapter 1, it'll make more sense, like you said, when we round this out and get to look back on it and do a rewatch.
Yeah.
So we actually haven't talked about this yet, and I really did want to talk about it because it was one of the coolest things of the episode, which was the dinner at the end of the episode. Them putting the dinner table on the rancor trap was the most genius thing, and I didn't notice it obviously until the reveal that you see the nails, but oh my god, what an awesome gangster move by Boba Fett to be like, oh, you don't think I'm scary? Oh, where are you eating? Right. Like, it was so cool. And I can't wait to see more of that Rancor. As you guys know, I'm a huge Rancor fan.
Those people who like you see on like Instagram and stuff, they're eating on a picnic table like 5,000 feet in the air, hanging from like cables, and you're like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? Just move
I'm glad
over.
you brought that up, Lacey, because I was like, man, I don't want to go the whole episode and not have mentioned that scene, but I don't know how to get back to it, and you brought it up. But yeah,
well, we're gonna see a lot more of that Rancor
thing, and then just like it, like he's petting his Rottweiler or something, you know?
Yeah, and feeds him a bone. Yeah,
it's a little bit of loving, you know. That's all. And everybody's like, "You are insane," you know. He didn't even like budge.
Yeah, that's like my friend had a dog. It was a Nikita. It was called Bandit, and
those are big dogs.
And it was a nasty dog, but like any owner, my best friend's dad was like, he won't bite you. His bark's bigger than his bite. I'm like, I'm not gonna test that out. And I don't like. It's the same thing with the Rancor. Like, listen, Boba, I believe you. It's a sweetheart. Not gonna try it out. Not gonna try that out. No thanks. Yeah. But I mean, I think we're gonna see a lot more of that Rancor in the next few episodes. I'm very excited about that. The one thing I didn't like, which James, you talked about this before, the music from the mod scene with that techno music took me out of the episode for a bit. I know like these shows are doing a different sort of thing with music from traditional Star Wars, but it was very like a chase scene from a Jason Bourne movie, or like when the girls are breaking into the jewelry place in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like very odd techno Moby type music, and I hated it. I'm trying to stay positive here.
I liked it. I was actually hoping they'd put it on Spotify.
Me too. I quite like that.
I couldn't stand it.
I love it. I loved that whole sequence. I thought it was really cool. I was like, this is like, you know, everybody says Star Wars is sci-fi fantasy. Like, we get a lot of the fantasy. We get a lot of the Lord of the Rings type side, like the banthas riding through the desert and like creatures and stuff. And we often don't get the sci-fi side, which we've gotten the bacta tank and ships and obviously and weapons. But we haven't gotten that like crazy sci-fi side. And I think that these kind of modders and like rebuilding someone as part droid, like that's so sci-fi and crazy and like really, really cool.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of it and just not the execution of it. Like, I want to see that, but like I said before, it feels a little low budget when those characters are on screen to me.
And it's not gonna I'm not gonna go on Twitter for the next 2 years talking about how I hate it. It's just a nitpick, and like you said before, it's just a nitpick. It's not a big deal. Just one little thing. I was like, didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, everyone's talking about how Thundercat brought the music. Who was the guy that was fixing?
Was that his music?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not.
I'm not sure, but
connected.
He's still
probably not
a musical guest, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting towards the end here. It's almost the rooster crowing time for Mark. So
we do have some super chats that we have to get to.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let's get through those, and then we'll get sort of final thoughts and speculation on where we're going next week.
All right, first up we have Frank Grande. Hey, Frank, how's it going?
Frank.
He had mentioned in the chat, by the way, Frank wanted to know my bad Star Wars ideas. No, you don't. So Frank said, I did think it was odd Boba went looking for his armor in the Sarlacc pit when he clearly saw Jawa take it off him. Maybe he was delirious. I don't know. Yeah. But it was cool that he got his revenge on the pit. I agree. Like, you don't remember them. Like, they punched you out. You don't remember the feisty Jawas, but I guess it's one of those things that like you're covered in acid, you think it's a fever dream type thing.
Yeah.
Or I just took the whole thing and understanding that like he was in fight or flight, like instinct, like he's like digging out of the hole because like when you're drowning, your body's doing this and you don't have any control of your body. Your brain's telling your arms to move, you can't get them to stop. So it's like he's digging out, or he's finding his way out of the pit, and then when he's even laying there, like all that stuff, like just blackout. Just he doesn't remember any of it. Interacting with what happened, he just was surviving, and that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Next we have Soonerthron. Thank you for the super chat. Who said, "Did Sidious just erase his mind to make Grievous chef?" I laughed when he did the whole General Grievous, like, you know, arms out, swirling of the knives. I was like, this is so funny. Thanks for the super chat. Thank you, Ryan, for the super chat, who said, when the season ends and the rewatch happens, it'll be better received. I think low ratings come from waiting a week to see it, and it's not pure fire. I mean, I will go back to The Mandalorian season 2, episode 2, the whole spider episode. Not a fan, but if you look at it as the whole story, it's a great episode. Like, it makes sense in where he's going and who he's meeting, and then with, you know, Grogu kind of learning to eat things throughout the season.
That 1 week, people were very mad.
This is
about
again.
the eggs,
This is that whole like TV versus film thing. I don't go back and regularly watch The Mandalorian. Like, it's just kind of one of those things. Like, we experienced it, and I know that it exists, but like, it's not something. Like, I've probably watched Rise of Skywalker way more times than I've revisited first season of Mandalorian or second season. You know, going back and rewatching them, and I think that's just because of the longevity. But that being said, man, when like I see clips of The Mandalorian, it does not matter what episode it's from. I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like, because like it brings back, no matter what episode it's from, it brings back the memories of the whole season being good. You know, the whole season, like of we took the character from here to here, and like every scene is great in retrospect.
Awesome. So we do have another super chat from Freezy2324. Thank you so much. Who said, if you could erase your memory from one Star Wars movie and watch it again for the first time, which one would it be? Probably for me, The Force Awakens. I love that movie so much. I have such a good memory of watching it, and the idea of seeing all these characters again that I love, and Rey grabbing the lightsaber for the first time. So I'm just going to give my answer first. Mark, what movie would you see over again if you could?
If I could erase one and watch it again for the first time, Revenge of the Sith.
Nice.
That just wrapped up so much stuff and was so dramatic, and I still happily watch that film any day of the week. So I think it would be Sith for me, because at that time we thought that really was it. That was the capo. That was the end. The circle was complete. The whole thing. So it would be Sith for me.
I'd
go with Return of the Jedi. Because in this question, I still remember 7, 8, and 9. So I want to know, like, so what did happen to Palpatine before all this and stuff like that?
I was going to say, that's a trick question, because my first instinct was Phantom Menace, because I was like, when I watched Phantom Menace, I didn't care as much as I care now. So I was like,
I'm going with Jedi.
I would like to revisit with my eyes today. But I was like, but wait a minute, I would know what happened in 2 and 3. Right. But I was like, we're going with the question just being like, if you could re-experience a movie and you just, you know, the way that you would experience a movie, you don't have any idea what's coming. So you kind of erase everything past that. You know, Phantom Menace would be good, but John, I think you really nailed it, man. There's no way. I don't have the opportunity to go back to like 1, 2, or 3. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think 3 is probably a really good one, man, because being able to see how the original trilogy wrapped up, because I love Return of the Jedi. How would I receive it today, seeing it for the first time? Yeah, crazy. Good answer.
Nice. And we have another super chat from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, who said, also, who would have predicted we'd see so much Boba Fett not wearing pants? I'll take it. He's looking
Culturally,
good.
that means something different to me, so I'm going to duck out of this one.
he's looking good.
I'm going to call him Roba Fett, because he's always wearing his robe.
At least he's not wearing the diaper. At least they've upgraded him to briefs. That's all I got to say. Like, poor Mark Hamill in that diaper.
Right.
No one looks
Bridget
good.
Jones pants. Yeah.
Bridget Jones pants. That is a great reference. Absolutely. All right, John, what's next?
That's sort of it. I just want to ask Mark, since he won't be with us next week, what's going on this show next week, Mark? What do you think? What are you looking for? Are you looking for war at this point? Is the table set? Are you looking for the Mando cameo? What are you most looking for next week?
Because Favloni and Favreau. Sorry, Favloni.
I mean, that's a great ship name, Favreau.
I'm keeping that with hashtag. Because they said that all these shows are going to sort of work together and become one big story, like the Defenders did with the Netflix Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
I think that the crux of that feels like it will be a gang war, and this is the start of the real build towards this gang war. That's my headcanon. That's me thinking where they'll take it. So I think next week, I think that Seven Samurai Magnificent Seven thing will start to build, because you did see that in Mando. They don't want to repeat too much what they did in Mando, but you did see Mando build his team up with Grief and then with Cara and build. So they don't want to do that. I think they'll wrap that up quicker, because Fett's more of a pull in that sense. Mando is doing his thing and he's on his mission, but Fett now is a prominent character in the underworld. So I think that team will come together quicker. But and also I don't foresee, because we've sort of done away with the bacta facility to take you into a flashback, which has worked really well thematically and visually. That's gone now. I think we're linear going forward. So I'm expecting fireworks next week.
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same board. Same boat as you there. James, how about you? Anything in particular you want to see out of next week? Any preference on director? Anything you're looking for? Or you're just going in for whatever?
No. One thing is that I feel, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like we've reached the end of the trailers. So at this point,
I think so.
This point now, it feels like every new thing, if they're going to tease like a clip, like an advertisement for next week's episode, it's going to be all new footage, and we're back in that boat of like, oh, I don't know what's coming next. And that's 3 full episodes of having nothing to come next. So that's very exciting. And then whatever happened to the Gamorrean guard who went in the bacta tank? That's what I want to know.
Good question.
So I hope he either gets his own spin-off series or no, I'm just kidding.
He turned into a human and married Fiona and went off with his friend the donkey. Lacey, how about you? Anything you're looking for? Some more rancor time like me or what?
Yeah, definitely Rancor time. I said that last week and we got a little bit, but not enough. We only got his nails. So I want I want a training montage like they did with the Blurks. Like I want like a full, like give us as much Rancor as you can. And what else? I mean, I think you guys said really good points, like building the team. We're all at war. I think these last 3 episodes are going to hit hard. I think these first ones have been kind of like laying the groundwork of what's to come. And then the epicness that Robert Rodriguez and others have been kind of toting leading into this is going to hit now.
Yeah, I think.
Another quick, just not to mention, like, if Din Djarin does show up with a new ship, like all that's super exciting.
Oh my God. If Din shows up, if you see and just all caps, it means Din showed up.
Have the dark saber at this point. He might use it. Like,
wow,
where are we at for these last 3 episodes?
Yeah, that's true.
That's good. Call.
It's I think the action's going to pick up a bit in the stretch run here. I do think we're going to see Boba using that Rancor to the best of its abilities to instill some fear and do some damage, and we're going to have some fun with that. You hear a bunch of rumors floating around about all these sorts of cameos and stuff, and I think they've made it clear to us. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, RMD Collective said hot take Han Solo shows up at the end of the series. I mean, guys, we will lose it.
Who knows? With what they did with
doesn't be here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and with what they did with Luke, they can definitely probably do something with Ford. So
wait, really quick, Mark, do you agree with this statement that leading up to the new Disney era, they constantly marketed Boba Fett and Han Solo as rivals all the time?
Yeah.
Yes. See, so I'm saying like they can't go through the series without at least mentioning him at some point.
When they
you think oh, well played. Cheap pop. You think where this is set in the time was about 5 years after Jedi? Dark Empire was 5 years after Jedi, and they were at loggerheads on Nar Shaddaa in that one. So they've always pitched them as opposites.
Solo threw him in the pit. Not directly, but accidentally.
A blind guy with a stick knocks the galaxy's greatest bounty hunter, bounces him off a ship into a hole in the ground. He's going to settle scores. So take out the biker gang, take out the sarlacc, thanks to Fennec, quick thinking. But, it feels like a score that needs settling. So that wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I know there's
Yeah.
been rumours of it being Harrison, but if it was Alden, it wouldn't surprise me either one iota.
I would love that. I would love either or.
Yeah.
And you know, another thing too, you're saying, you know, it was Han that knocked him in, but don't forget he was reacting to Boba Fett. He's saying Boba Fett's here.
Yes,
Kind of
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a surprise to it, like, wait, hold on, game changer. Why?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought
Yeah.
we were just dealing with Jabba the Hutt, like a crazy person. But he's like,
Yeah.
Boba Fett's here, like all
Right,
of a sudden
and
now.
you know, John Kazan recently revealed that they wanted Boba Fett to be in Solo, but Lucasfilm was like, "No, we're doing a movie with him at the time," so they couldn't do
the
it.
Josh
So
Trank thing. Yeah.
I think they're going to explore Boba Fett and Han Solo in a Solo era thing one day to help beef up said rivalry, because we've heard, like you said, we've heard about it. We haven't seen them really go at it.
Nothing.
terms
We've
of-
gotten nothing. Yeah.
So I think that's something they'll hopefully explore when they bring Alden back. But next week, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited about that. I don't know how this thing's going to wrap up, but I could see something where maybe he leaves the palace to the Tuskens, or one of those types of walks that goes on the dusty trail or whatever. But I'm excited. It's things are going to heat up. So before we get out of here, Mark, why don't you let people know where they can listen to you on your show and the site and everything? Just plug away and have at it.
Oh, thank you very much. Fantha Tracks, so fanthatracks.com. So head to the site, daily news. I'm always posting some nonsense there, and so's the team. We've got our podcast network as well, Making Tracks, which is the weekly news show. On Wednesdays, as and when we can, are going to do a reaction chat, which is basically just me and Mark quickly. It was about half an hour long, just reacting to what we've just seen. And we're going to take that forward through Kenobi and/or Bad Batch going forward. So hopefully that'll work out. And then, just everywhere on socials at Panther Tracks. And if you want to find me, if you're that batty, it's prefect_timing. You can send
He's
me.
a great follow, so go follow.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Great follow. So thank you very much. Yes. So that's where you'll find me.
Excellent. Yeah. So make sure you follow and subscribe to Mark on all those spots for sure. Always good chats, always good content. And that's why we love having you here, buddy. But also for us, make sure you are subscribing to our show on your preferred audio platforms. Also youtube.com/Star Wars Newsnet videos. If you're joining us live, you know that. Star Wars Newsnet also for your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. You'll find me writing and editing over there. Patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. This show exists because of you, so we thank you for all your support. Tiers start at $2 a month if you want to support us. We appreciate it. Special shout out to our generals and spice runners. First, our generals: Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olson, Oliver Lewis, Frank Grande, Joe Ritchie, Darth Hurricane, John Charlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Nathan Shank, Danny, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you. And our spice runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Double C Chris, Kendall Gelnar, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, Thomas Hennessy. Thank you all for all your support and all of our patrons. Next week, January 26th, Chapter 5 will be joined by Adam Russell, the bassist for the band's Story of the Year, and a co-host of the Star Wars podcast, Thank the Maker. So Adam will be joining us 9 p.m. East next Wednesday to talk about Chapter 5, and who knows what we're going to be talking about then. But again, you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and all those other places I mentioned. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
James Baney.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks.
All right. Mark, thank you again, man. As always, it is a pleasure. And we got to have you on the regular pod again in due time, because it's always a good time. As long as you're literally up for it.
Oh, I will. As long as I'm not working the next day, I'm in. So just call me. Definitely. Always fun.
Will do. Thank you, man. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we see you in a few months in Anaheim.
Definitely. Can't wait to see you guys. Can't wait.
Me too. Honestly, one of the best hugs I had at Celebration 2019, Mark Newbold. That's a fact. All right. So thanks again to everybody from the four of us here at the Mando Fan Show. As always, we'll see you around, kids.